The laboratory hummed with a low, almost living frequency. It was past midnight in their private facility on the rain-slicked outskirts of Bengaluru, where the humid air carried the faint scent of eucalyptus from the nearby grove and the distant rumble of trucks on the highway. Fluorescent lights cast long, clinical shadows across stainless steel workbenches cluttered with half-disassembled prototypes, scattered notebooks, and empty coffee mugs stained with days of neglect. In the center of the vast room stood the machine, the culmination of 12 years of their combined genius. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. A 6-foot titanium ring suspended by magnetic levitation, its inner circumference lined with precisely calibrated superconducting coils that glowed a faint, ethereal blue. Quantum entanglement matrices pulsed beneath translucent panels, and temporal displacement buffers, cylinders filled with chilled helium, hissed softly like sleeping serpents. Holographic readouts floated in the air, displaying cascading equations that only a handful of people on Earth could fully comprehend. This was no Hollywood contraption with sparks and lightning. This was cold, elegant, merciless science. Their science. Dr. Riya Sharma stood before it, her once vibrant face now gaunt under the sterile light. At 35, she retained the sharp intelligence in her dark eyes, but sleepless nights had carved hollows beneath them. Her lab coat hung loosely over a simple black t-shirt and jeans, her long hair tied back in a messy bun with strands escaping like frantic thoughts. She adjusted a final calibration on the control console, her fingers trembling slightly. Beside her, Dr. Aman Kapoor watched in silence. Tall and broad-shouldered, with salt and pepper hair that had grayed prematurely from stress, he carried the quiet authority of a man who had once believed in order, in causality, in the unchangeable arrow of time. Now, at 36, that belief lay in shards around him. His wedding ring felt heavier than usual tonight, a cold band pressing into his skin. 48 hours, Riya whispered, more to herself than to him. Exactly 48. No more. We go back, we fix it, we return. The equations are stable. The risk of paradox is contained within the local causal bubble. Aman exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. The machine's hum seemed to sync with the pounding in his head. Riya, this isn't observation anymore. You're talking about intervention. Changing events. We swore when we built this that we would never. I know what we swore. Her voice cracked, sharp and sudden, echoing off the concrete walls. She turned to face him fully, eyes blazing with a mix of desperation and something darker, obsession. But you don't understand what this regret is doing to me, Aman. It's eating me alive. Every night I close my eyes and I see him. Pankaj. Lying twisted on that highway, blood on the asphalt, his bike a burning wreck. Because I wasn't there. Because I let him go. Aman's jaw tightened. The name Pankaj still landed like a punch to the gut, even after all these years. He had never met the man in person, but he knew the ghost intimately. Pankaj Mehra, the college flame, the chaotic storm Riya had never fully escaped. Manipulative, sly, short-tempered, a chain-smoker and heavy drinker who lived for the thrill of illegal bike races. Dead at 21 in a crash that made local headlines for a week before fading into campus folklore. You had a crush, Riya. A youthful infatuation. He died 15 years ago. We built a life together. Or, we tried to. The last words came out bitter. Aman walked to the console and pulled up their shared logs, years of data, arguments encoded in timestamps. Their marriage certificate appeared briefly on the hologram before he swiped it away. Look at us. Colleagues. Co-authors. Strangers sharing a bed that's been cold for 2 years. Riya's shoulders slumped. She stepped closer, her hand hovering near his arm but not quite touching. That's why we need this. Don't you see? Saving him, it will heal the fracture in me. Then I can be the wife you deserve. The partner you fell in love with during our PhD days. Aman laughed, a hollow, painful sound that didn't reach his eyes. He remembered those days vividly. They had met in the physics department at Pune University in 2010. Riya was brilliant, fiery, always challenging professors with incisive questions. Aman was the steady one, the synthesizer who turned chaos into elegant models. Their late-night study sessions turned into coffee dates, then quiet confessions under monsoon rains. They married in 2018 after years of long-distance research collaborations. It had been perfect, until the ghost of Pankaj began haunting her more frequently after their 5th anniversary. He had found the hidden photo once. Faded, edges worn. Pankaj with his cocky grin, arms slung around a younger Riya at some college fest. Aman never confronted her about it. Some wounds you let fester in silence. Do you know what this machine represents? He asked, voice low and intense. He gestured at the ring. We cracked closed time-like curves using entangled particle pairs and negative energy densities. It's not magic. It's physics pushed to the edge. One miscalculation and we could create a feedback loop that erases us both. Or worse, branches a timeline where we never existed. Riya's eyes filled with tears. She grabbed his hands, squeezing hard. Then come with me. We go together. We watch. We intervene only if necessary. Pankaj's crash happened on a Thursday night in 2011. We arrived 2 days before. I stop him from racing. I talk him out of it. Then we return here and everything resets. Our marriage, it gets a second chance too. Aman pulled his hands away gently but firmly. He walked to the small window overlooking the dark compound. Rain pattered against the glass. Our marriage failed long before the machine, Riya. I've seen the way you look through me. The way you flinch when I touch you. The late nights you spend staring at old college photos on your laptop when you think I'm asleep. I stayed because I loved the woman I married. The scientist. The dreamer. Not this version haunted by a dead manipulator who treated you like a toy even back then. She recoiled as if slapped. He was troubled, yes. He drank. He smoked. He had anger issues. But he was also brilliant in his own chaotic way. He made me feel alive, Aman. Wild. Not trapped in equations and grant proposals. Alive? Aman's voice rose, the control slipping. He cheated on you multiple times. He manipulated you into covering for his absences. He once got so drunk he smashed a bottle near your face during a fight, your own words, Riya, when you were drunk on our honeymoon and confessed everything. And now you want to risk everything, our careers, our stability, the fabric of causality, to save him? The argument escalated. Riya paced around the machine, her voice trembling with emotion. She recounted the night Pankaj died in vivid detail, the phone call she ignored because she was studying for exams, the guilt that followed when news broke. I could have stopped him. One message. One visit. But I chose the safe path. I chose you eventually, but the regret never left. It poisoned us. Aman countered with their shared history, the papers they published, the awards, the quiet nights where they dreamed of Nobel recognition. We were going to change the world together. Time travel for science, for medicine, for understanding history. Not personal redemption. Not rewriting your college love story. Hours passed. The argument circled, raw and exhausting. At one point, Riya broke down completely, sliding to the floor against the console, sobbing into her hands. I can't live like this anymore, Aman. Every success feels hollow. Every night I dream of that crash. If we don't do this, I'll lose myself completely. And you'll lose me too. Aman stood over her, torn. He loved her still, deeply, painfully. But love had curdled into resentment and pity. Their intimacy had become mechanical, infrequent, laced with her distant stares. He knew the statistics: many marriages survived on inertia. Theirs was dying of regret. He knelt beside her, wiping a tear from her cheek. "If we do this, we go together. No solo interventions. We observe first. We return exactly 48 hours later from the jump point. Agreed?" Riya nodded frantically, relief flooding her features. "Yes. Together. I promise." They prepared in heavy silence. Neural stabilizers were injected, small pricks that would protect their memories and anchor their consciousness against timeline drift. They changed into period-appropriate clothes, simple jeans, t-shirts, hoodies to blend into 2011 college life. Fake IDs printed with aged paper. Cash from that era. Aman programmed the coordinates with meticulous care. Pune University campus, near the old hostel block. Arrival window, Wednesday evening, 2 days before the fatal race. As the machine powered up, the hum grew into a deep resonance that vibrated in their bones. The titanium ring spun slowly, blue light intensifying until it formed a shimmering veil within the circle. Riya took his hand. Her grip was iron. "Thank you. This will save us both." Aman didn't reply. Deep down, he feared the opposite. Changing the past to erase a regret often birthed greater ones. But for the woman he once loved more than physics itself, he stepped forward. They entered the ring together. The world folded like origami. Colors inverted. Time unraveled. When the vertigo cleared, the air smelled of rain-soaked earth, cheap cigarettes, and youthful possibility. Pune, 2011. The laboratory was gone. In its place, distant laughter from a college canteen, the honk of auto rickshaws, and the faint thump of music from a nearby fest. Young Riya and young Aman were out there somewhere, living their ordinary lives, unaware that their future selves had just torn a hole in the timeline. Older Riya's eyes lit up with manic hope as she spotted a familiar figure in the distance, Pankaj Mehra, leaning against a motorcycle, cigarette glowing in the twilight, laughing with his gang. Aman watched her face transform. The ghost had materialized. And in that moment, standing in the shadows of their own past, Dr. Aman Kapoor felt the first cold tendrils of dread wrap around his heart. This wasn't salvation. This was the beginning of the end. The vertigo hit like a sledgehammer to the skull. One moment, the sterile blue glow of their Bengaluru laboratory enveloped them. The next, the world fractured and reassembled with brutal force. Riya and Aman stumbled out of the shimmering veil onto damp grass, the titanium ring dissolving behind them into nothingness, leaving only a faint ozone scent that quickly dissipated in the humid Pune evening. Riya gasped, clutching her stomach as bile rose in her throat. The neural stabilizer injection burned in her veins, anchoring her memories. It worked. Oh God, it actually worked. Aman steadied himself against a rough concrete wall, breathing heavily. The air was thick with nostalgia and decay, petrichor from recent rain, the sharp tang of beady smoke, frying pakoras from a nearby stall, and the distant roar of two-wheelers. It was 2011. They were back. The old Pune University campus sprawled before them under a twilight sky streaked with orange and purple. Familiar hostel blocks with peeling paint, bicycles chained haphazardly, groups of students laughing and arguing in Hindi, Marathi, and English. String lights twinkled from an ongoing college fest in the central ground. Time had folded precisely. They had arrived on Wednesday evening, 48 hours before Pankaj's fatal race. "Stay focused," Aman muttered, adjusting his plain gray hoodie. His heart hammered with a cocktail of scientific awe and primal dread. "We keep distance from our younger selves. No direct contact unless absolutely necessary. We observe, we nudge only what's required to stop the race, and we return." Riya wasn't listening. Her eyes darted wildly across the campus, scanning faces. She looked younger already, not physically, but in energy. The lines of regret on her face softened under the weight of possibility. He'll be near the mechanical engineering block. He always hung out there with his biker gang after classes. They moved like ghosts through the familiar yet alien landscape. Fake IDs tucked in their pockets identified them as visiting researchers from Mumbai. To any casual observer, they were just another pair of alumni or outsiders. But inside, Aman felt the timeline pressing down like invisible hands around his throat. As they walked past the girls' hostel, Riya froze. There she was, her star. Younger Riya, 20 years old, vibrant and unburdened, walking with a group of friends toward the library. Her hair was longer, shinier, her laugh carefree as she discussed some quantum mechanics doubt with a classmate. The younger Aman was probably buried in books somewhere, preparing for tomorrow's exam, the very exam that would become the site of the first betrayal. Older Riya's breath caught. Tears welled up. Look at me. I was so full of hope then. Before everything went wrong. Aman looked away, pain lancing through his chest. Seeing his younger self later would be worse, he knew it. The idealistic boy who believed love and science could conquer anything. They kept moving, hoods up, staying in shadows. Riya led them toward the mechanical engineering canteen area. The sun had dipped fully now, and the air grew cooler. Laughter and loud music echoed from the fest grounds. And then she saw him. Pankaj Mehra. He leaned against a battered Royal Enfield motorcycle, cigarette glowing like a malevolent eye in the dim light. 20 years old, lean and wiry with sharp, angular features that could switch from charming smile to vicious snarl in a heartbeat. His hair was tousled, a black leather jacket slung over one shoulder despite the humidity. Tattoos peeked from under his rolled sleeves, cheap ones, done in shady parlors. Around him, 4 or 5 friends laughed at some crude joke, passing a bottle of cheap whiskey. Riya's entire body trembled. She gripped Aman's arm so tightly her nails dug in. There he is. Alive. Breathing. God, I missed that face. Aman studied the man who haunted their marriage. Pankaj exuded raw, dangerous charisma. He took a long drag from his cigarette, exhaling smoke rings, then barked a laugh that turned into a cough. His eyes, restless, sly, scanned the crowd constantly, always calculating. Riya, Aman whispered urgently, this is reconnaissance only. We watch his patterns, find the right moment to dissuade him from the race on Friday. But Riya was already pulling away. I need to get closer. Just, listen. You stay back. Before Aman could protest, she slipped into the crowd, buying a cup of tea from a stall to blend in. Aman followed at a distance, heart pounding with anxiety. This was spiraling already. He could feel it, the dopamine rush of the unknown mixed with the sickening dread of impending betrayal. Pankaj noticed her almost immediately. Older Riya had dressed carefully, simple salwar kameez that could pass for a college senior or visitor. Her mature confidence made her stand out subtly among the giggly undergraduates. Our new face? Pankaj called out, his voice smooth with that manipulative lilt. He flicked the cigarette away and sauntered over. Up close, he smelled of smoke, engine oil, and whiskey. You from electronics department? Haven't seen you around. Riya's voice trembled but she steadied it. Visiting, cousin of a friend. Heard there's a good fest happening. Pankaj's grin widened, eyes raking over her. Then you found the right guy. Name's Pankaj. King of these roads. He gestured to his bike. His friends snickered knowingly. They talked. Riya laughed at his jokes, forced at first, then genuine as old memories flooded back. The crush reignited like dry grass under a spark. Aman watched from behind a tree 30 meters away, every word a knife twist. He saw the way Pankaj leaned in too close, the way his hand brushed her arm accidentally, the sly glances he exchanged with his gang. The first fracture happened that night. Young Aman, innocent, studious, was in the central library, as expected. Older Aman positioned himself near the entrance, torn between duty and horror. Riya had slipped away earlier, saying she needed a moment alone with the past. She found the opportunity during a brief power flicker. Young Aman stepped out briefly to the washroom, leaving his bag on the table. Older Riya moved like a shadow. Her hands shook violently as she pulled out the duplicate answer sheet she had prepared in the lab, rigged with deliberate errors and copied handwriting that mimicked her husband's. She slipped it deep into his bag, between notebooks. Tears streamed down her face as she did it. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Aman. This is temporary. For Pankaj. For us." She vanished before young Aman returned. The next morning, the consequences unfolded with clinical cruelty. Examinations were in full swing. Invigilators, tipped off by an anonymous note, planted by Riya via a campus messenger, searched bags during a surprise check. The duplicate sheet was found. Young Aman was dragged to the principal's office in shock and humiliation. Accusations of cheating flew. His scholarship was immediately suspended pending inquiry. Whispers spread like wildfire across campus, that brilliant Kapoor guy. Caught red-handed. Older Aman, hidden near the administrative block, witnessed his younger self's world crumble. The boy's face, his own face, once full of quiet pride, twisted in disbelief and shame. Friends distanced themselves. Professors who once praised him now looked disappointed. Aman's fists clenched until his nails drew blood from his palms. Rage, sorrow, and a deep, aching betrayal warred inside him. She did this. To me. To the man she married, the woman he had followed into the past had just sabotaged the foundation of their future for a dead man's ghost. He found Riya later that afternoon near the hostel blocks. She was flushed, eyes bright with a dangerous mix of guilt and exhilaration. "How could you?" Aman's voice was low, venomous, barely controlled. They stood in a secluded corner behind the boys' hostel, the air thick with tension. "I had to create a distraction," Riya whispered, refusing to meet his eyes fully. Pankaj was getting suspicious of outsiders. This way, people are focused on the scandal. It buys us time. Young you will recover. I know the timeline, he gets cleared eventually in the original flow, just with delays. That's not the point. Aman grabbed her shoulders, shaking her gently but firmly. Tears burned in his own eyes. You framed me, framed him, for cheating. You destroyed his reputation, his confidence, for one night of proximity to Pankaj. Our marriage was built on trust, Riya. On shared dreams. You're eroding the very ground we stand on. Riya pulled away, defiant yet cracking. You don't know what it feels like. Carrying this regret for 15 years. One small change. That's all. When we return, it will smooth out. You'll see. But Aman saw the lie in her eyes. The obsession had taken root deeper than he feared. That evening, the college fest reached its peak. Music blared from speakers. Fairy lights swayed in the breeze. Students danced, couples stole kisses in corners, and the air smelled of excitement and stolen youth. Pankaj held court near the bonfire. Riya approached him again. Older Aman watched from the shadows of a banyan tree, every nerve screaming with anxiety. His heart rate refused to settle, the thriller-like dread of watching his life unravel in real time pumped adrenaline through him relentlessly. Pankaj was already slightly drunk. His arm slipped around Riya's waist possessively. You're different from these silly girls, Yar. Got fire in you. They danced. Close. Too close. Riya's body pressed against his, memories of stolen college moments flooding back. Pankaj whispered something crude and flattering in her ear. She laughed, genuinely. Then came the kiss. Under the pulsing lights, as a romantic song played, Pankaj cupped her face with rough hands. Their lips met. It started hungry, then deepened into something raw and desperate. Riya kissed him back with years of pent-up regret and longing. Her hands tangled in his hair. His grip tightened on her hips, pulling her flush against him. It was passionate, public enough that whispers started, but hidden enough in the crowd. Older Riya, the brilliant scientist, betrayed her husband in the shadows of her own youth. Aman watched every second. The sight burned itself into his retinas. The woman he had vowed to love, the co-creator of a time machine, lost in the arms of a manipulative, short-tempered drunkard who would one day die screaming on a highway. Jealousy, heartbreak, and a cold, clinical anger fused into a toxic knot in his chest. He wanted to storm over, to drag her away, to scream that this was destroying everything. Instead, he stood frozen, the scientist in him documenting every detail while the husband shattered. When Riya finally pulled away, breathless, Pankaj smirked. "Come with me tonight. There's a bar outside campus. Real fun. Not this kiddie stuff." Riya glanced once toward the shadows where she knew Aman watched. For a fleeting second, guilt flashed across her face. Then she nodded. As they walked away together, arm in arm, Aman sank against the banyan tree, sliding down until he sat on the roots. The fest music sounded distorted now, like a nightmare soundtrack. Rain began to fall lightly, mixing with the tears on his face. He whispered to the uncaring night, voice breaking, "What have we done? What have you done, Riya?" The ashes of their past were not just being stirred. They were being reignited into a fire that threatened to consume their entire future. And they still had one more day before the race. The college fest lights faded behind them as Riya and Pankaj slipped away on his motorcycle. The night air whipped past, carrying the mingled scents of exhaust, rain-soaked soil, and the faint sweetness of night-blooming jasmine from roadside bushes. Riya clung to Pankaj's waist, her cheek pressed against his leather jacket. The roar of the engine vibrated through her body, awakening echoes of long-buried thrill. For a fleeting moment, she felt 20 again, reckless, desired, unbound by equations or wedding vows. Older Aman followed at a careful distance in a battered auto rickshaw he had hired with crumpled 2011 rupee notes. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped animal. Every bump in the potholed road sent jolts of anxiety through him. The neural stabilizer in his bloodstream kept his memories sharp, but it did nothing to dull the emotional blade twisting in his chest. "This is madness," he thought. "We came to save one life, not destroy ours." The bar was called Midnight Rush, a notorious hole-in-the-wall on the city outskirts, far from campus oversight. Neon signs flickered erratically, half the letters burned out, casting a sickly red and blue glow over cracked concrete steps. Heavy metal music thumped from within, mixed with raucous laughter and the clink of cheap glass. The air outside reeked of spilled liquor, stale smoke, and urine from the alley beside it. A few shady figures loitered near parked bikes, exchanging packets under dim streetlights. Pankaj killed the engine and grinned back at Riya. "This is where the real party happens, baby. No kiddie college shit. You game?" Riya forced a smile, her pulse racing with equal parts excitement and dread. "Lead the way." Inside, the bar was a claustrophobic den of vice. Dim yellow bulbs hung from exposed wiring. Wooden tables scarred with cigarette burns and knife marks filled the space. A long counter ran along one wall, behind which a burly bartender with a scarred face poured generous measures of whiskey and rum. Smoke hung thick in the air, cigarettes, beatis, and something sweeter that hinted at illicit substances. Men in various states of drunkenness shouted over the music, while a few women, bar girls and adventurous locals, laughed too loudly at crude jokes. Pankaj commandeered a corner table near the back, away from the main crowd but with a view of the chaos. He ordered a bottle of Old Monk rum, 2 glasses, soda, and some greasy kebabs that arrived on oily plates. His friends from campus had tagged along, 3 rowdy guys named Vicky, Samir, and Rohan, who immediately started downing shots and boasting about upcoming races. Friday night is going to be legendary, Vicky slurred after his 3rd drink. Pankaj Bhai is challenging that bastard from Mumbai. 140 km/h minimum on the highway stretch. Pankaj laughed, but there was a sharp edge to it. That fucker thinks he can beat me? I'll leave him eating my dust. His eyes flicked to Riya, possessive. You coming to watch, sweetheart? My lucky charm. Riya nodded, sipping her rum and soda. The alcohol burned down her throat, warming her from within, loosening the tight knot of guilt that had formed since framing young Aman earlier. Wouldn't miss it. As the night deepened, the conversation turned darker. Pankaj's short temper flared when a waiter took too long with refills. He slammed his fist on the table, making glasses jump. Useless bastard. Do I look like I have all night? The waiter scurried away, terrified. Pankaj turned back to Riya with a charming smile, as if nothing happened. See? That's how you handle people. Show them who's boss. Aman had slipped into the bar 10 minutes after them, taking a stool at the far end of the counter, half hidden by a pillar. He nursed a single beer, his hood low, eyes never leaving their table. The explicit betrayal he had witnessed at the fest, the kiss, still burned behind his eyelids. Now, watching Pankaj's arm drape heavily over Riya's shoulders, fingers tracing lazy circles on her upper arm, Aman felt his stomach churn with nausea. The scientist in him catalogued every detail for the logs they would review upon return. The husband in him was breaking. Hours blurred. Bottles emptied. Pankaj grew louder, more handsy. He pulled Riya onto his lap at one point, whispering slurred compliments mixed with crude desires. You're not like the others. Got class. But I bet you're wild underneath, huh? His hand slid under the hem of her kameez, gripping her thigh. Riya's cheeks flushed, from alcohol and memory. In the original timeline, moments like this had been fleeting, dangerous highs before the inevitable crash. Now, with future knowledge and desperation, she leaned into it. Maybe I am. One of Pankaj's friends made a vulgar joke about breaking in new talent. The table erupted in laughter. Pankaj's eyes darkened with lust and ego. He stood abruptly, pulling Riya up with him. We're taking the back room. Don't disturb us. The bartender nodded knowingly and tossed him a key attached to a dirty keychain. There were back rooms, in places like this, semi-private spaces for exactly this kind of transaction, rented by the hour. Aman's blood ran cold. He wanted to intervene. Every fiber screamed at him to stop this. But the timeline, the machine's rules. Riya's promise that it was temporary. He stayed rooted, watching as they disappeared through a narrow door at the rear. The back room was small, dingy, and smelled of sweat, cheap incense, and old semen. A torn vinyl couch dominated the space. A single bare bulb swung from the ceiling. A cracked mirror on the wall reflected the sordid scene in fragments. Pankaj locked the door and pushed Riya against it immediately. His kiss was aggressive, tasting of rum and cigarettes. Teeth clashed. His hands roamed greedily, squeezing her breasts through her clothes before yanking the dupatta off and tossing it aside. Fuck, you're hot, he growled, biting her neck hard enough to leave a mark. Riya gasped, a mix of pain and forbidden pleasure shooting through her. Years of marital routine with Aman had left her starved for this raw intensity. She kissed him back fiercely, her fingers digging into his shoulders. Clothes came off in a frantic haze. Pankaj ripped open her kameez buttons, exposing her bra. He shoved it down, mouth latching onto a nipple, sucking and biting while his hands fumbled with her salwar drawstring. Riya moaned, arching into him. The alcohol lowered her inhibitions, the regret fueled her hunger. she pushed him toward the couch. Pankaj fell back, grinning wolfishly as he unzipped his jeans. His erection sprang free, thick, veined, already leaking. Riya knelt between his legs, taking him into her mouth with desperate skill. Pankaj groaned, tangling his fingers in her hair, guiding her roughly. "That's it, good girl. Deeper." The explicit sounds filled the tiny room, wet sucking, heavy breathing, Pankaj's filthy praise. "You suck cock like you were born for it. Better than those college sluts." After a few minutes, he pulled her up and flipped her onto the couch on all fours. He didn't bother with protection. In one thrust, he buried himself inside her from behind. Riya cried out at the sudden fullness. He was rough, pounding with short-tempered urgency, slapping her ass hard enough to leave red marks. The couch creaked violently. Sweat dripped from his brow onto her back. "Tell me you're mine tonight," he demanded, gripping her hips bruisingly. "I'm yours," Riya gasped, lost in the moment, the betrayal, the twisted redemption. Pankaj's pace quickened. He reached around to rub her clit roughly, bringing her to a shattering orgasm that left her shaking. Moments later, he tensed and came deep inside her with a guttural groan, collapsing over her back. They lay tangled for a while, breathing hard. Pankaj lit a cigarette, offering her one. Riya took it, inhaling deeply despite having quit years ago in her future life. The nicotine buzz mixed with post-sex haze and guilt. "You're different," Pankaj said, blowing smoke rings. His voice had that sly manipulative tone again. "Most girls get clingy. You got secrets. I like that." Riya smiled sadly. "More than you know." Outside in the main bar, Aman had moved closer to the back door. He heard everything, the moans, the slaps, the dirty talk. Each sound carved another wound. Tears streamed silently down his face as he pressed his forehead against the grimy wall. The woman he had built a time machine with, the one he had vowed forever to, was in there fucking the man who should have stayed dead. The explicit betrayal was complete. When they finally emerged, Riya's clothes disheveled, hair messy, a fresh hickey on her neck, Pankaj had his arm around her like a trophy. They rejoined the table for more drinks. Pankaj bragged subtly to his friends with winks and gestures. Riya sat quietly, sipping another rum, the warmth between her legs a sticky reminder. Aman returned to his stool, ordering another beer he barely touched. His mind raced with worst-case scenarios. What if she got pregnant? What if diseases transferred? What if this changed more than they calculated? The thriller tension coiled tighter in his gut. Every laugh from their table felt like nails on a chalkboard. Later, a fight nearly broke out. A drunk patron bumped into their table, spilling Pankaj's drink. Pankaj's short temper exploded. He shoved the man hard, then punched him square in the jaw. Blood sprayed from the stranger's split lip. Chaos erupted briefly, chairs knocked over, shouts, the bartender intervening with a latte. Pankaj was panting, eyes wild with adrenaline and alcohol. Riya pulled him back, calming him with touches and whispers. "See that?" Pankaj said to her afterward, wiping blood from his knuckles. "Nobody disrespects me. I protect what's mine." The possessiveness sent a shiver through Riya. In the original timeline, this trait had contributed to his isolation and risky behavior. Now, she was feeding it. By 2 a.m., the group stumbled out. Pankaj insisted on dropping Riya near the hostel. On the bike ride back, his hand occasionally wandered back to squeeze her thigh. Aman followed again, the auto driver complaining about the late hour. At the drop-off point, Pankaj pulled Riya into one last deep kiss, grinding against her. "Tomorrow, we do this again. And Friday, you watch me win." Riya nodded, waving as he sped off with his gang. Aman confronted her minutes later in a dark alley behind the hostel blocks. The rain had started again, light but persistent. "How could you? His voice was hoarse, broken. I heard everything, Riya. I saw. I know. You let him fuck you like an animal in that filthy room. Raw. No protection. While I stood outside like a fool. Riya's post-sex glow vanished. Tears mixed with rain on her face. It was necessary. To gain his trust. To stop the race. He listens to me now. One more day, Aman. Then we return and fix everything. Necessary? Aman laughed bitterly, the sound edged with hysteria. You came on his cock, moaning like you loved it. This isn't science anymore. This is you chasing your college fantasy while destroying our future. The argument grew heated but hushed, voices strained. Riya defended her actions with desperate logic. Aman listed the betrayals, the framing, the kiss, now this. Heartbreak poured out in waves. Yet, beneath the rage, a terrible suspense lingered. They still had to navigate the final day before the race, and the timeline was already fracturing in ways they couldn't predict. As they parted to find separate sleeping spots for the night, hidden, exhausted, emotionally wrecked, Aman whispered into the rain, some ghosts should stay dead. Riya, walking away, touched the hickey on her neck and felt the sticky evidence of Pankaj between her thighs. Guilt warred with a dark, addictive satisfaction. The bar night had ended, but its consequences were only beginning to echo through time. The morning after the bar night dawned gray and unforgiving over Pune. Rain had eased into a persistent drizzle that turned the campus paths into muddy slicks. Riya woke in a cheap lodge room she had rented under her fake ID, her body aching in unfamiliar ways. The hickey on her neck throbbed dully. Between her legs was a sticky soreness and faint bruising from Pankaj's rough handling. She stared at the cracked ceiling, a cocktail of guilt, lingering arousal, and scientific justification swirling in her mind. It was necessary. One more day. Then we save him and go home. Aman had barely slept. He had spent the night in a different budget hotel across the campus, replaying every moan, every slap, every filthy word he had overheard. The neural stabilizers kept his mind razor-sharp, refusing to let him forget a single detail. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands unsteady as he brewed cheap tea on a room heater. The scientist who had once dreamed of Nobel Prizes now felt like a cuckolded ghost haunting his own past. They met at a secluded tea stall behind the library at 8 a.m., both disguised in raincoats and hoods. The air smelled of wet earth and frying Veda Pav. You look like hell, Riya said softly, reaching for his hand. Aman pulled away sharply. And you look like you've been fucked raw by your college fantasy. How was round 2 this morning? Did he call? Riya flinched. Don't. Please. I did what I had to. He trusts me now. Tonight is the race. I'll convince him to skip it. Tell him I have a bad feeling. We'll be back in the lab by tomorrow. Aman's laugh was bitter, hollow. Trust? He treats you like property. I saw the bruises on your wrist. Heard him slap your ass like you were one of his bar girls. This timeline is already cracking, Riya. Young me is still under cheating investigation. Our younger selves are probably fighting because of the rumors about you and him. What if we create a paradox we can't return from? Before she could answer, Pankaj's bike roared in the distance. He had texted Riya earlier, demanding she meet him near the mechanical workshop. She left Aman standing in the drizzle, a broken figure under a banyan tree. Pankaj looked hungover but wired, eyes bloodshot, cigarette perpetually in hand. He pulled Riya into a rough kiss right there in semi-public, his hand squeezing her ass possessively. Missed this body. Last night was fire. Tonight, after I win the race, we celebrate properly. My place. Riya forced a smile, her stomach twisting. About the race. I had a dream. Bad one. Maybe skip it? Stay with me instead. Pankaj laughed, short-tempered edge already showing. Skip? Are you crazy? That Mumbai guy has been talking shit for weeks. I'll destroy him. You watch. His grip on her arm tightened painfully. Don't nag like a wife. I hate that. The day dragged with mounting tension. Aman shadowed them from afar, heart pounding with thriller-like suspense every time Pankaj's temper flared. At one point, Pankaj got into a screaming match with a rival biker over minor bike scratches, nearly coming to blows. Riya calmed him with touches and whispers, playing the role of soothing influence. Each intimate gesture she offered Pankaj drove another nail into Aman's soul. By late afternoon, the real crisis ignited in a narrow alley behind the old market area near campus, where street kids often loitered. 12-year-old Arjun was a scrawny migrant boy from a nearby slum, dark-skinned, wide-eyed, selling cigarettes and water packets to students for survival. He had made the mistake of talking back to Pankaj's gang the previous week when they shortchanged him. Today, revenge came swift and brutal. Aman was positioned on a rooftop across the street, binoculars in hand, when it started. Riya had gone to freshen up, leaving him to monitor. Pankaj, Vicky, Samir, and Rohan cornered Arjun in the alley. The boy's small cart of goods was kicked over, packets scattering in the mud. Thought you could run your mouth, Kota Sala? Pankaj snarled, grabbing Arjun by the collar and slamming him against the wall. The slap echoed, sharp, vicious. Arjun cried out, blood trickling from a split lip. The beating escalated. Fists rained down. Pankaj's short temper, fueled by hangover and ego, turned feral. He punched the boy in the stomach, then the face. Arjun curled into a ball, sobbing. The gang laughed. Then came the worst part, humiliation. Strip him, Pankaj ordered, eyes gleaming with cruel delight. Teach this street rat a lesson he'll never forget. They tore at the boy's thin clothes. Arjun screamed, struggling weakly. His shirt was ripped off. Pants yanked down. The boy was left naked, shivering, exposed in the filthy alley while the older boys jeered and took photos on cheap feature phones. One of them, a bystander kid hiding behind crates, secretly recorded the entire horror on a low-quality mobile, the beating, the stripping, Pankaj's mocking laughter, Arjun's broken pleas. Aman watched in frozen horror from above. His scientist's mind noted the exact time. His human heart shattered at the cruelty. This was the trigger. In the original timeline, this video would leak, go viral on early social media and local WhatsApp groups. Police would get involved. Pankaj would panic, steal a high-powered bike, and race away from consequences, straight into a truck at 140 km per hour. Riya arrived minutes after the gang left Arjun sobbing and half-dressed in the alley. She had known the timing from history. She found the boy first, helping him cover up with her dupatta, her hands shaking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry this happened to you, she whispered, giving him all the cash in her pocket. Arjun's eyes were vacant with trauma. He clutched the recording phone like a weapon. That evening, Riya moved with desperate precision. She tracked Arjun's family through slum networks, asking discreet questions, bribing a local chaiwala with future-era 100-rupee notes that still passed. The slum was a labyrinth of tin roofs, open drains, and despair. Dogs barked. Cooking smoke mixed with sewage stench. Arjun's parents lived in a one-room shack, his father a daily wage laborer, mother washing clothes for others. The boy sat in a corner, staring blankly, the phone hidden under his mat. Riya arrived after dark, wearing a simple sari to blend as a social worker type. She carried a thick envelope. Namaste, she said softly, sitting on the dirty floor. I know what happened to Arjun today. I want to help. The parents were wary, terrified. The mother wept as Riya described a sanitized version of events. The men who did this, they are dangerous. but I can make it go away. For Arjun's future. She placed the envelope down, nearly 2 lakh rupees in crisp notes, withdrawn from emergency accounts they had prepared. This is for his education. A new place to live. Medical help. But you must delete the video. Never speak of it. Tell no one. The father's hands trembled as he counted the money. Greed and fear warred in his eyes. Police. I will handle officials, Riya promised. She had already met a corrupt local inspector earlier that evening in a seedy tea shop, sliding another thick bundle across the table along with veiled threats of powerful connections. The inspector had pocketed it, agreeing to bury any complaint. Arjun was brought forward. Riya knelt before him, eyes gentle yet urgent. Delete it, beta. For your mother. For your life. Those men won't touch you again. I swear. The boy, still bruised and broken, nodded numbly. He deleted the video in front of her. The bystander who recorded it was tracked and paid separately. Witnesses silenced with cash and fear. As Riya left the slum under cover of night, rain soaking her, she felt a dark triumph. Saved, Pankaj would not panic. No viral video. No desperate escape ride. She met Pankaj later at a roadside dhaba. He was drinking again, boasting about the lesson he taught some street kid. Riya kissed him deeply, masking her revulsion. You don't need the race tonight. Stay safe with me. Win me instead. Pankaj, ego-stroked and problem mysteriously vanished. He never learned of the video, agreed with a laugh. Fine. For you, baby. One night. They spent the night together again, another explicit, raw encounter in his dingy rented room. Pankaj was aggressive, claiming her body while drunk, leaving more marks. Riya endured it, whispering promises, playing the role perfectly while tears slipped silently. Aman, who had followed and witnessed parts of the intervention from shadows, confronted her at 4 a.m. near the machine's extraction point. You bribed a child's traumatized parents, he hissed, voice cracking with emotion. You covered up the sexual humiliation of a minor. Paid officials to look away. All so he doesn't die. What have you become, Riya? This isn't saving a life. This is becoming a monster to protect one. Riya sobbed, broken. It was the only way. In the original timeline, that video destroyed him. Now he lives. We return tomorrow, and the regret is gone. Our marriage heals. Aman grabbed her shoulders, tears streaming. Look at what you've done to us. To that boy. To young me, still suffering the cheating scandal. The timeline is poisoned. I can feel it shifting. They argued in whispers under the pouring rain until dawn, hearts fracturing further. Suspense built to a crescendo as they prepared for extraction. Would the machine accept them? Had they altered too much? At the precise 48-hour mark, they activated the return sequence in a hidden clearing. The ring materialized briefly. They stepped through, holding each other in a grip that felt more like drowning than salvation. The world folded again. But when they emerged in 2026 Bengaluru laboratory, the air felt wrong. Changed. Aman's instruments blinked warnings. Minor timeline deviations detected. Riya smiled through exhaustion. We did it. He's saved. They would soon learn the terrible price.
Please subscribe!